Vladimir Putin owns Donald Trump. Welcome to Scrying Out Loud. My name is Trevor. First off, a huge thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel. Thank you for your likes, your watches, your shares, your comments. If you've given money to the channel through Buy Me Coffee, Venmo, the super thanks, huge thank you. It's all greatly appreciated. If you've been promoting the channel on your social media, huge thank you. These things don't go unnoticed, and I'm very grateful for all of them. Okay, so several months ago, it might have even been in January, I released a video about the blackmail that's going on between Putin and Donald Trump that kind of explains why Trump, the felon, is doing the things he's doing and blaming Ukraine for Russia's invasion, for example, removing some cryptocurrency sanctions so that Russia can get money funneled into it. President Biden had Russia in a pretty bad shape. I think Russia's still in pretty bad shape, but it's doing a little bit better because the felon has been finding ways to make Putin's life a little bit easier. Now, he hasn't removed all sanctions or anything like that yet, but it wouldn't be surprising if he does. Now, this negotiation of ending the invasion of Ukraine is starting to become a little bit of an embarrassment to the felon, which isn't surprising. I don't think Putin had any motivation whatsoever to end the invasion on the felon's terms or even allow the United States to influence whatever deal would be done should a deal be reached. I think Putin very much wanted Donald Trump to humiliate Zelensky, and then Putin saw that the rest of the world rallied around Zelensky. Zelensky still receives standing ovations wherever he goes. And so it's like Putin isn't getting everything he wants because the rest of the world isn't beholden to him. But Donald Trump is. And I think we should explore that again, look at it, look and see what's going to happen as a result of it, and kind of rethink things. So there was a phone call between Putin and the felon. The felon described it this way. Putin described it a completely different way. As I was scrying this morning, I very clearly could see that Putin's description was more accurate, which is surprising, even though he's a murderous dictator and thug. He tends to tell the truth if the truth is embarrassing to the felon. And this is kind of his way of threatening the felon with disclosing what he knows about him. And so we'll get into all of that. But let's first just start out with the power dynamic of this relationship between Putin and the felon. So just have some cards explaining the power dynamic between Putin and the felon. Now, remember, the felon has gone out of his way to lift some cryptocurrency sanctions. He's also not condemned a lot of things that I think would normally be condemned. He certainly hasn't spoken out against North Korea, for example, as North Korea continues to aid Russia. And I'm pretty sure North Korea's stealing of cryptocurrency was sponsored by Putin. And that was something that was predicted in my 2025 predictions that there would be a cryptocurrency theft or scandal that would lead to the cryptocurrency dropping dramatically in price. And then ultimately it would rebound, which it has done. It's not fully rebounded, but it's close to it. But it's definitely a very volatile thing. And it's not nearly as secure as the crypto world would like to think. But that's probably for another reading. So what is the dynamic between food? So in this scrying bowl, I see the Emperor card, which is about abuse of power. Sometimes the card for the presidency, but in this case, I think it's the card for Putin. Putin's the one that is holding all the cards, so to speak. We get the nine of uh, wands, guardrails, the weary warrior. Um, it's almost like perfectly depicted in this picture. Putin's in green, the felon's in red. The person in red looks almost nervous about the person in green. So I think uh, one is a weary warrior, which is the felon, and one is more of a don't really care type of person because really Putin has nowhere, Putin's never going to go up in world image. He really can't fall any further. He's kind of at the bottom in terms of how people view him. We get the Ten of Cups, and I think this is representing that Putin not only has control over the felon, but he has control over the felon's family. Now, I want to make it very clear I don't mean that Putin has dirt on the family, although he might. But the dirt that he has on the felon is so damning that it would completely destroy the felon and the family unit itself. Like their reputation would be completely ruined. Yeah, intergenerational relationships. He knows about inappropriate relationships between the generations, meaning the felon with, for entertainment purposes only, the felon's relationships with younger people. We'll just put it that way. We have the Five of Cups in the environment around. This is loss. The felon really is at a complete loss because there's nothing he can do. And that's very scary for the United States. However, I do think things will turn out okay. At the center of the reading, we get the Empress, which is my card for Russia, just validating that we're reading on the right thing. We get the Knight of Wands in the environment around. Fiery messages coming forward. They're not coming forward yet. The question is, will they? Or will this sort of quid pro quo type thing keep its homeostasis? I kind of don't think it will, but we'll just have to see. Circles of support and celebration. Putin manipulates the felon into thinking that he's part of this group that's calling the shots, so to speak, when in fact he's just being manipulated because he's in such cognitive decline that he's very easily manipulated. So Musk, Putin, and the felon, they're the three people in the Three of Cups. We get the Seven of Wands in the environment around. The felon's very much in a defensive posture, having to defend himself. because Putin has the information that would bring him down, and the Nine of Pentacles. Putin has everything he needs to completely destroy the felon in the sense of reputation. And I want to be very clear, I am not talking about anything to do with the 2024 election. It's had nothing to do with that. This has been going on for a while, way before that. Okay, so we can see here that the felon is the weary one. Putin holds all the cards, is standing steadfast. Putin is safe inside of Russia, having everything that he possibly needs to control the felon. The felon's manipulated to feel like he's a part of this group that's making these decisions about the world and about, uh, particularly about like the conflict in Ukraine or the Russian invasion of Ukraine, when in reality, he's going to do whatever Putin says. Now, the one thing I think Putin wasn't exactly counting on is that there still are checks and balances in the United States. And the courts, for example, have intervened on a few things and will continue to do that. And what does Putin have? He has information about intergenerational relationships, which are not appropriate. And that ultimately would destroy not only the felon, but his family. This information is so fiery and so, imagine the worst thing you can think of and multiply it by 10. That's what I see. It puts the felon in this very defensive posture with Putin where he's really kind of beholden to him because he really doesn't have a choice because he knows ultimately he's in this lose-lose situation and he's just trying to avoid the loss until I think he's actually gone. And then I think he's hoping things aren't of value anymore. We'll read on that as well. So underneath, we have this fiery new dynamic. We have the state of pausing and suspension with the hanged man. This is the felon pausing certain sanctions. And then here's the felon looking at all the burdens that are in front of him, all the things he's done wrong over the years that Putin knows about, and is trying to think about how to navigate that. This is why the felon only does things for himself and doesn't care about anybody else. In some ways, it's like the narcissist trying to survive his ill deeds, so to speak. Okay, so this dirt, I've alluded to it, for entertainment purposes only. I don't want to say it directly and outright because I think YouTube would ding the video if I do. So, but just think, Jeffrey Epstein, stuff along those lines. So is there actual video evidence that Putin has of the felon engaging in behaviors that we would all, even MAGA would find morally reprehensible? Is there video evidence of these crimes? Is there video evidence? So I always thought that there was. I think the connection is a wild web that flows from Epstein to Putin to Musk. I think Epstein became very desperate at one point in time when he was in prison and realized that he probably wasn't going to survive. When he knew he was going to prison, um, and tried to put up some protections for himself, but I think somebody got to him first, right? I think that's what happened. Okay, so we get the Knight of Swords. Putin's ready to do battle. He's not joking around. Like, it is kind of like, mutually agreed destruction, so to speak. So I don't know that it happens before anybody, while anybody's currently alive. Um, sorry, while the felon is currently alive, or it might not even be until after Putin is gone as well. But Putin's the felon believes Putin's threats and knows what's out there. Again, circles of support around money. This is what Putin wants. He wants support from the United States. He's also getting support from Elon Musk in various ways. And they're just going about things kind of sneakily, but it's really kind of out in the open if you just pay attention. Like, why is our policy towards Russia changed? Why is the United States' policy towards Russia changed? Does it really make sense? Right? The only thing that makes sense is that Putin is controlling the felon. Here's the felon in his own reading, the King of Pentacles in the upper right. We have the greedy merchant and the environment around. And in this case, I think the greedy merchant is representing somebody who thinks that they're invincible, that can get away with anything, and that there'll be no consequences. And I think that the felon is actually learning that there are consequences. The Eight of Wands is at the center of the reading. And this is everything pointing to one thing. All the wands are pointing in the same direction. Everything points to the felon being controlled. And this latest incident with the phone calls that happened yesterday just reaffirms, and the images I got this morning just really reaffirms that, you know, Putin holds all the cards, and the felon is just saying exactly what he's supposed to saying, isn't stepping out of lines. Now, Putin's not getting involved in certain things because Putin just doesn't care, but um, again, the Six of Cups, intergenerational relationships, that's what it's all about. Here's the Emperor card that I was seeing in the water earlier, this abuse of power. And once we read this diagonal, we'll see that the abuse of power is directed at the felon. The spy in the camp and the environment around. Now, I think the spy in the camp was actually Jeffrey Epstein, could possibly be Musk to some extent, because I do think Musk has some dirt on the felon, but I think um, I don't think Musk knows the extent of the dirt that Putin has. That's an interesting question. We'll see where the cards kind of lead us. And again, the Three of Cups, this ability that Putin has to manipulate the felon into thinking that he's actually part of the party, when in reality, he doesn't even have a seat at the table and he's just being used as a puppet. So Putin's not playing around. He's the Knight of Swords, ready to go into battle. He has all of his wands lined up, pointing to all the things that the felon has done that are of forgot the word I was going to say, but are of immoral nature or amoral nature. And at the same time, he's able to use this leverage against the felon, but make the felon also feel like he's part of the party. So, and this is partly because the felon, is probably in the bottom 30% of IQs, would be my guess. And he's just not very smart. He never has been, he never was, and now he's in cognitive decline, so it's getting even worse. So we have the emperor. This is like Putin abusing power. Who's he abusing? Well, he's using all the wands and he's pointing them at who? Pointing them at the felon, the King of Pentacles. And if you look, it's actually visually depicted there. The wands are all pointing at the felon. So in the meantime, Putin's using this to gain monetary advantage for him and for Russia, mostly for the military in Russia. And the greedy merchant in the environment around is representing the felon and the felon's thought process that he can get away with anything, that there's nothing that he can't do. I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. That's partly true, but I don't think he can get away with what Putin has on him. That information came from someone that's the spy in the camp. I think this is Epstein. That's what the prior readings had stated. And again, what's it about? It's about intergenerational. The word relationship is not right. Inappropriate contact between people of different generations. Let's put Putin has everything he needs, including with the Nine of Wands or Nine of Pentacles, including Elon Musk, the magician, on his side. And that's why we have this surprising new beginning with the policies towards Russia. And the felon is bearing all the burdens, although you'd never know it because he just is emotionally stunted, not able to express emotions, not able to ask for help, not able to admit that he's ever done anything wrong. He's not able to own up to the sins that he's committed. And then we have the devil, people being held in bondage, uh, and abuse of power and manipulation. So, yeah, I think there is very strong evidence to back up what Putin has. I think it's most likely on videotape. That would be my guess. The felon made some mistakes in staying in some hotels in Russia. And to think that, you know, Putin and others wouldn't take advantage of that, uh, I think is rather naive. So, no, a lot of people think that the felon was part of the KGB. I never thought that. I think that story is just fake. But I do think that the felon is a Russian asset in the sense of that they're controlling him, and they have been controlling him for a very long time. I don't think he knows a bunch of information. I think they've just been using him to get information out of the US, but not in any sort of formal capacity. We have to watch out for things coming out of Russia. Everything's misleading. Everything is not as it seems. Okay, so since January 20th, has Putin threatened to release this information? Is he threatening the felon? Is he actively threatening the felon? The felon knows he has the information, but is he actively threatening to release it? And the what I see like an old VHS tape and a manila envelope. And it looks like somebody's, kind of teasing that they're going to put the tape into an envelope. So I think that's exactly what's going on. Let's see what the cards say. You see active repair. Yeah, we have the moon card things coming to the surface. He's threatening to bring things from the unknown into the known. He knows this would be a fiery new beginning for not just the United States, but for the world. And he knows that it would cripple the United States. Nobody would really know how to react for a while. Um, I don't think Congress, I, I think if video evidence came out, Congress probably would impeach him and convict him because the public would demand it. But um, then, I mean, then Putin has no leverage, right? So uh, that's why it's important that the felon is like this, is not able to really think things through. Like he'd be a terrible chess player. He can't think beyond one move. He's a one move type chess player. It's inevitable, I think, that this information comes out. Now, again, I think that either one or both of them are gone at that point. Uh, and the environment around, here's the felon defending himself with the Seven of Wands. The center of the reading is defined by the two wands, which is a crossroads. So there are two roads that can be taken. One is the status quo that we're currently living in, where the felon keeps being subservient to Putin. And the other is that Putin just destroys everything by releasing the dirt. And when we get the hanged man and the environment around, currently we're in a state of pausing and suspension of this information. So I don't think it's going to come forward just yet because I think Putin knows if he did that, then he like actually weakens his hand. So meanwhile, the felon is experiencing a lot of sleepless nights. I think this is why we get the 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. tweets. And they're usually kind of insane because he has to lash out at somebody and he can't lash out at who he's really angry at. So he lashes out at Taylor Swift, at James Comey, all of these things. And the environment around being wounded in battle and there being a victor. Here, the felon's the one that's wounded. I don't know if you can see in the imagery in the back, somebody wounded and the victor's in the front holding all the swords of the people that he's victorious over. Putin literally holds all the swords or all the cards. And we get the Queen of Cups. Um, Putin is playing on the fact that the public would be uh, empathetic to the victims and not to the felon. So things coming to the surface puts us very much at a crossroads situation. And Putin's taking advantage of that because he knows that what he has is so damning that people aren't going to side with the felon this time. The felon, meanwhile, is going through these sleepless nights, this anxiety, although he probably doesn't know that word, um, and this kind of irrational behavior that comes about from that. Uh, he very much knows that he's at a crossroads, And I think deep down he knows it's inevitable that this comes out, but it's kind of a situation where um, he also has some power. I don't think he has as much as he thinks. Like, I don't think, for example, the US military would go along with launching nuclear weapons at Russia. I don't think that would ever happen, right? So it's his threats are a little bit more idle. So this is a fiery new relationship, a new beginning for the country. The felon's sitting there defending himself. He's very much wounded in battle and knows it. Putin's very much the victor, and the felon knows that. But the current energy is that this dynamic is being paused and suspended so that Putin can leverage it to his maximum benefit. So we have the Ten of Pentacles. The money probably is exchanging hands too. I think this is probably being done in some back channel ways. I don't think anything crazy like stealing the gold from Fort Knox or anything like that's happening. I think it's most likely being done with cryptocurrencies, market manipulations, things along those lines. And Putin's the one that's directing it, and that's why it's being successful. The Wheel of Fortune's very much in the air on how this ends. But I do think that a message will come forward eventually. So, okay. So, how is exactly the felon paying Putin? What exactly is all the things that he's doing besides making Zelensky, trying to humiliate Zelensky? That didn't work. Um, Trying to rewrite history on what exactly happened there. Is the felon creating back ways to um, get around sanctions so that Russia has access to more capital? So, I don't think the Russian economy is doing very well. I think it's doing better than it was under Biden, but there's a lot of players in this game, and it's very complicated. For example, the Prime Minister of India probably is unaware of all the dynamics, but is more than happy to funnel money to Putin by buying oil, for example. This manipulation of market, this releasing or lessening crypto sanctions, lessening just sanctions in general on Syria. Syria is a good way to funnel money as well. So is the felon making their ways to funnel money into the Russian economy? Putin himself doesn't need money, but he does need the Russian economy to. Are there back channels being created to funnel money? This is being done in a variety of ways. I see the symbol for the Bitcoin. That's part of the ways, but now there's so many different cryptocurrencies, it's impossible to keep track. So we get the star card, wishing upon a star, hope. The hope is that the felon's able to pacify Putin. The environment around, we get the devil, mis and disinformation, toxicity, abuse of power, manipulation, market manipulation in particular, cryptocurrency manipulation. All of these things, I think, are being used to funnel money. And you can short cryptocurrency just like you can short the market. There are ways to do that. So you can make money when it's going down, and when it's going up, it doesn't matter. As long as it's not staying the same value, there's ways to make money. Yeah, it's waiting for one ship to come in, something being inevitable, the Three of Wands. Putin sitting there waiting for the funds to come to him. Again, in the same position, the Three of Wands was there last time. The Seven of Wands was here last time. I'm fairly sure. This is the felon's way of defending himself against public shame, so to speak. At the center of it all is a message about money, which is exactly what we're talking about. The Page of Pentacles. Yeah, giving and receiving of loans and debts. It couldn't be any more clear. The Six of Pentacles and the environment around. This is very much a tit for tat thing. I will give you this runaround way to give you money so that you don't release information on you. It's just a classic blackmail scheme for entertainment purposes only. We get the Four of Wands. This is kind of like, this is my card for the voters, but in this context, I think it's just MAGA voters in particular, just going about their lives completely oblivious to this. And that's why it's working. And there are other people that are probably oblivious to this. We've talked about the education in the United States just being kind of retrograding back into something that it wasn't, right? Before. I mean, you would have gotten a better education in the 70s and 80s than you would today. Things are not heading in the right direction. In public schools, that is. The Queen of Swords. This is a logical intuition and a consistency about the way it's being done. It's very methodical. And here's the felon appearing in his own reading. So the felon's here hoping and wishing that he can get money. So the felon's sending money through these back channel ways because he doesn't actually have enough money himself to fund a whole country's economy, right? So that's what we're talking. We're talking large sums of money. Most of the voters are oblivious that money is being transferred in this way, but it's inevitable that they're going to find out. So there's an inevitability about it. In the environment around, we have the mis and disinformation, the toxicity, the lies, the deceit that the felon says, and the distractions to keep people distracted from it. The James Comey, Taylor Swift tweets, great example. Something big is going to happen this week is what I said in a reading last week. And I think this phone call is kind of the big thing that's happened, although it doesn't appear that way because our media is once again just broken. The felon's defending himself against this consistent way of exchanging money with Putin. Yeah, messages coming forward. It's a new reality. It's like a surprising new beginning for most of us as we sit back in horror and watch what's going on. The good news is it's not going to last for long. The felon's not going to be around that much longer. So I think we will survive it. Okay, so the two more questions I want to ask. This white lumen tarot deck for this one. Will Putin release this dirt after the felon exits the planet, or release it should he exit first? So does this get released when one or both of them are gone? Very good. Like, does this lead to the downfall of the felon post being on the planet, but it'll still be a downfall of sorts. Does this get released? Is this information? Yeah, I see an image of kind of a generic image of an adult couple sitting on the couch with the child in between, and their jaws are just dropped when this information comes out. It'll surprise some people, it won't surprise others, but the extent to what is there, I think, will surprise most of us. So yeah, we get the Knight of Swords. Putin's not playing around. He's ready to do battle. He always was. That's why, uh, uh, well, what I was gonna say is like somebody who truly loved the country and was in this position would resign and, take their medicine in the justice system, but we all know that's not going to happen. Or maybe it will. I don't think so. The Eight of Swords, the felon very much feels trapped by this information being out there, feeling confined. Uh, Feels like he has to be careful about um, what policies are implemented. We get the Nine of Pentacles, having everything you need in the upper right. We'll have to see who that's referring to here in a second. The Six of Swords moving into calmer waters. So this would suggest that the evidence comes out. At the center of the reading, yeah, there's the fiery message, the Knight of Wands. It's at the center of the reading. The information's at the center of the reading. It comes out. We have strength in the environment around. That's a good thing. We have fighting, the Five of Wands. I have the Chariot. It's what this thing's all about. If you've watched this channel, you know what the Chariot means. And we have the Three of Swords, heartache, sabotage. And here the swords are actually going through the back to go through the heart. So being stabbed in the back, it's going to come out. So Putin's not playing around. He has the information, and he's more than happy to stab the felon in the back. Again, I think this is post him exiting the planet. There'll be a lot of fighting about the information, but it'll be so overwhelming that everybody will have all the information that they need about it. In the meantime, in the environment around, the felon feels very confined because he knows of the crimes he's committed. And after the information comes out, I think things start to improve and people start to get a better grip in the United States, and the country returns to a position of power. I think it changes everything when the felon goes. Yeah. Passionate fieriness, the Queen of Wands, the repayments of loans and debts, or the exchange of information. I think that's really what this card's representing. Leads to a surprising new beginning. Where's the information come from? It comes from Russia, the Empress. So I think the information comes out. Again, it's either after. I think the felon goes before Putin. That's what I've always seen. Um, I'm not infallible. I could definitely be wrong. but that's what I've always seen. Um, so will this help end the MAGA cult? That's why I think this information coming out is actually a good thing. Well, truth generally is a good thing, but I think it ends the MAGA cult because their leader is now undeniably a horrible individual. Does this end the MAGA cult? There'll be other crimes that come out as well, but this will be the one that really does it. Yeah, again, it's just this image of people just being gobsmacked, a state of, you know, shame almost that they believed he was, you know, worthy of their vote. Yeah, the wheel of fortune is going to turn and they're going to find themselves regretting some of their past support. Again, in the environment around the Knight of Swords, information is going to come quick and it's going to be very damning. It'll very much be like a battle. And I think we might see some intervention by the courts, probably some comments by the Pope and the church. And the Page of Cups, bombshells and surprises in the environment around. People are going to be really surprised, especially the MAGA folk, on just how horrible he is. At the center of the reading is Russia. You know, some of them have even changed their tune on how they felt about Putin because of the culty type nature of this group. Unlikely partnerships in the environment around. I think you'll see neighbors come back together that have been torn apart for political reasons. And yeah, reunions, family celebrations, people start to reunite. The division in the country is still going to be there, but it's going to be at a different level. It's going to be more about policies and less about personalities. The Queen of Wands, I think we'll see some fiery prosecutorial type messages being relayed. And the tower, this changes everything. You know, the structure gets torn down of the MAGA cult, and it might still exist to some extent, but it definitely won't be what it was. So the wheel of fortunes are turning. Russia holds the cards, and ultimately, Russia has the power to, Russia or Putin, if you wish, has the power to bring down the cult with this information. This will result in people coming together because of what Russia does. It'll also result in, I think, the courts and possibly the Pope and possibly some churches um, that have gone astray coming back into reality. Things going quickly with the Knight of Swords would be very much be a bombshell, a surprise. A lot of fiery prosecutorial type energy here, not from prosecutors per se, but from just people, you know, speaking about all these things, which forms an unlikely alliance. Like the best way to unite people is to give them an enemy, right? MAGA doesn't realize that eventually in the future their enemy is the felon, but that's the way it's going to play out, I think. So the seeds have already been planted. The spy has already given the information. His cards couldn't be any more clear. Putin's the puppeteer, the felon's the puppet. There's been the exchange of information and money for keeping information quiet, but the information is going to come out. We have the sabotage of the Three of Swords, being backstabbed. And we have a fiery new beginning, a surprising new beginning, and a return to moderation, and a move away from the deceit and the deception of the Seven of Swords, and back into an energy where we come together and support one another and rebuild. So I think that's the way it plays out. I hope um, well, I wish none of this was going on, but I think that's, I think it's going to play out the way it's supposed to play out. And this will mark kind of the real change of the age into the age of Aquarius. So, all right. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with another video soon.